Hello, welcome to the first ever episode of the Downed Pilot podcast, where me and my co-host Eric Ossenmacher,
Yeah,
that's
that's me.
you, yeah,
That's me.
say hello to everyone, Eric.
Hello to everyone, Eric.
Great. We're gonna watch the pilot for Aquaman 2006 from the creators of Smallville, and we're gonna have a good time with that. And Eric, do you have anything a word of caution perhaps to the audience?
Well, when I heard about this pilot like a couple years ago, I'm like, oh, so like they're making like they made a pilot based on Alan Ritchson's character from Smallville. No, they did not. It's actually way weirder than that. So yeah.
Well, we can get into that topic more deeply. Just dive right in after this. Be right back. Hey Eric,
Yes, Tom.
you ever hear of this Doctor Who?
Doctor Whom?
I don't know what the proper English is behind it, but it is a English television series that our good friends Kimber and Nolan talk about on their podcast.
Oh yeah, you're engaged to one of those.
Yeah, not Nolan, Kimber, but they talk about Doctor Who and their top 5 moments from Doctor, and you should check it out on Odd Shape Channel.
Oh, cool. We're on there too.
We're everywhere. This is an empire. Hey Eric,
Yeah, Tom.
you know how our new show talks about pilots that don't quite make it?
Yeah, I'm aware.
Well, our friends Kimber and Matthew Whitaker do a show called TV Three Way podcast that it bridges the gap between Scream Mayhem and Odd Shape Channel. It's featured on both platforms, and they talk about 3 pilots, while we're lazy and just talk about one. And they rate them on bingeability scale, which we kind of have the opposite thing going. We can't binge our shows because there's just one of them.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's the whole concept. If we all talked about pilots that did work, what'd be the fun in that?
Right, we're like the Bizarro of the TV three-way podcast. So check them out here on Odd Shape Channel or here on Screen Mayhem if you're listening through one of their links. Check it out. It's a three-way, but it's not sex.
Well, that's disappointing.
And we're back to the Downed Pilot podcast, where we just finished watching Aquaman together. Eric,
Yes.
reaction.
There was a time where this, as we alluded to in the episode itself, that this was one of the most, if not the most watched episode of television on iTunes. Mostly because it wasn't released otherwise, and it's okay. It's not
Yeah.
it's not god awful, but it's not great either. I can see why it wasn't picked up.
Well, there was also changes in the studios. They were combining WB and UPN into CW at the time, so they had a bunch of shows that were on the list, but it didn't make the cut. You brought up earlier that it was not played by the same actor who played Arthur Curry on Smallville.
Yeah.
Although he was initially intended for the role.
Actually, no, that's not what it is. In fact, it's actually stated. I believe I read somewhere that there was at no point where Alan Ritchson was considered for this because they wanted it to be separate, just be completely separate from Smallville itself. But at the same time, they wanted to eventually cross it over, which makes no sense. But
None whatsoever.
especially since literally later in the year where this was made, they still had Alan Ritchson in a season 6 episode. So actually, I think technically it was a year later, but because it was like second half of season 6 or something. So that would have been early 2007.
Sounds about right. Were there any standout moments for you?
Oh, like stand out good or stand out bad?
I guess we're gonna go through both, but let's start off with the good.
I did like Justin Hartley is played AC Arthur Curry, right?
Yeah. Yep. Who in Smallville fans will recognize as Oliver Queen.
Yeah, was that why we were making all those Green Arrow references? I never would have guessed. But yeah, it's very interesting. He's definitely shows the potential, and I can see why they when they weren't moving on with the series, they decided to actually add him into the Smallville cast. At first on like a smaller capacity, but then expanding his role later on. I can see why, like I can see definitely the spark there, but like I said in the episode, it feels a lot like Power Rangers acting for a lot of it.
Yeah, and if you're just listening to this podcast, we do post a watch along that Eric and I do, trying to be funny. I mean, I don't know if I reacted that way during our watch through, but seeing Ving Rhames with a crossbow is always pleasant.
Yeah, like Ving Rhames is also definitely another positive for this, entire pilot. Like I definitely think that they had plans for his character. Some interesting plans. Because like you don't just throw Ving Rhames into this cast and not have big plans for him. It's like,
yeah, you mentioned during the watch along, I might be Black Manta. Yeah, that would be an interesting spin. Maybe like for some reason he's in exile, and then you find out that he's responsible for some sort of like the execution or something like that. That would have been interesting to make him like a post villain.
Yeah, like pretty much in the same vein that Harrison Wells wound up being the Reverse Flash. I feel like it would have been a nice twist to have this seemingly helpful mentor end up being one of Aquaman's greatest villains, because obviously we didn't get any sort of big bad in the pilot itself, so I feel like having Ving Rhames take the reins on that would be pretty interesting.
Yeah, it seemed more like it was taking the Smallville early season Freak of the Week aspect, where he was like, sirens, and there's going to be more. I think they were going to go into different, like, myths, like, where I'm going with this. Mermans. I can't believe we didn't make that joke.
Yeah, it's like there's a point like in the first episode where Alan Ritchson is in Smallville, where he does like a water ball, and if we were watching that, I would definitely have made a Mermaid Man reference, because that's what Mermaid Man does. So I was brushing up on those scenes before we recorded this, just so I had something to talk about regarding that. But man, Alan Ritchson wasn't chosen for this series, but he did this, and now he's a Ninja Turtle, and pretty soon he's going to be Hawk, so that's also going to be pretty cool.
I mean, I'm not going to get into the uselessness that is Hawk and Dove currently on this podcast, but I mean, maybe Teen Titans will only get one episode, and we'll be able to talk about it. I hope not. I hope it does well.
I hope so too. I hope so too. It'll definitely be something.
Now, how do you like this version of Aquaman compared to the Jason Momoa version of Aquaman?
Oh, see, that's a little unfair, because the Jason Momoa Aquaman is just the embodiment of everything that I love about, like, the Aquaman in Batman: The Brave and the Bold. I can definitely draw a line from that Aquaman to the Jason Momoa Aquaman. Sure, the one from Batman: Brave and the Bold is super cheesy, but that's just the tone of that show. But it's definitely, I can see that being a slightly more modern take of that sort of Aquaman, and I really enjoy it. where this Aquaman is just sort of the. Did you ever watch that Disney Channel original movie, The 13th Year?
Oh my god, I was gonna make 13th year jokes, but I didn't think anybody would get them.
Oh, yeah. It's like we totally missed out on all the 13th year jokes. I mean, that probably could have taken up the entire opening.
Oh god. Yeah. I mean, it definitely felt like that, and during some of the but some of the ocean scenes.
Yeah.
And I was just like, I'm glad we didn't deal with that origin story so much. Like, we got a reveal to why he's like this, but we didn't have him going through everything, which kind of like for Smallville, which I mean, Superman has so many powers that it makes sense to explore them throughout the series. But with Aquaman, it's like, why can I swim so fast? We didn't have to deal with any of that in this, and that was kind of nice.
I mean, we did get hints of it, like as like at the very beginning when he's talking to Tim. Wait, was his father Tim Curry? Like not the actor Tim Curry, but was he called Tim Curry? I don't remember.
His name was Tom.
Tom Curry.
Tom Curry.
Tom Curry. Thank you. I got confused with the actor Tim Curry.
Hey, look, man. In Aquaman, they all float.
Okay. So when he's talking to Tom Curry, his adoptive father,
played by Lou Diamond Phillips, and his leathery face,
which you didn't really notice because he's barely in the episode.
Oh, I noticed.
Well, you noticed, but you were like, wait, what?
Yeah, I mean, the names attached to this were pretty surprising. I mean, you have two pretty big names right off the bat. I mean, maybe not superstars, but definitely household names. People know who Lou Diamond Phillips and Ving Rhames are.
You know, at this point, at the time that this pilot dropped, name that nobody knew at the time was Adrian Palicki.
Right.
Who was actually in another famous dropped superhero pilot, which I hope that we actually cover at a later point, the dropped Wonder Woman pilot.
Oh yeah, if we can find it, I would definitely love to talk about it. Also well known from her Supernatural fame, which is where I was first introduced to her.
But I know her more so from her work on Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. in seasons 2 and 3.
Right.
And another dropped pilot, which we actually has not been released at all, Marvel's Most Wanted. Man, she is just the queen of dropped pilots, honestly.
Oh god, that's an unfortunate title to have. But speaking of royalty, I guess it works better for Clark Kent because that is like his alter ego, you know what I mean? But for a series just based on Arthur Curry, it's a little weird not to see the kingdom in any capacity. You could have put it in a flashback. You had like two of them in the beginning anyway. And that's a big, like you were talking about the Brave and the Bold one. Like he feels like a Shakespearean, like, and he gets a Shakespeare book at the end, but I don't think that has anything to do with it. But he feels like a very like bold, like it's funny, brave and bold, but like just a bold character who's like very theatrical, and that's why I like Momoa's Aquaman so much, is because he just like bleeds like nobility, kind of like it might be more of like a chieftain nobility in that version, which I love that they like put a whole new cultural spin on Aquaman for the Justice League. He was my favorite part, but for this it just like I don't know if anyone cares about the early years of Arthur Curry, not in the same capacity as Clark Kent.
I mean, it is. I kind of would guess like maybe this. I honestly I feel like this had potential if they went a different way. So I guess, but there are definitely some negatives about this, and I brought it up in the actual talk along, but this pilot is like 85% exposition. It's just going from one scene of people explaining what's going on to another scene of people saying what's going on. Like, here, let's have 3 different scenes of talking about how AC broke out these dolphins, but let's not actually show AC breaking out these dolphins.
And like I get that the there's a lot of locations, including the Bermuda Triangle itself, and I get that it's a cool device to use because it is an area wrapped in mystery and things like that. But we as an audience already know what the Bermuda Triangle is. You don't need to hammer home that it's such a weird place. I felt like we were like being talked down to for like a third of it just because we're like, oh my god, we know Bermuda Triangle, it's weird.
At the same time, it's like I don't feel like they were trying to explain what the Bermuda Triangle is. I guess they were trying to sort of explain that weird things are in fact afoot at the Bermuda Triangle. It's not just myth and legend. And I guess I don't know what kind. It's kind of weird that these people like I dropped I believe the show is called the 1600.
Yeah.
It's been forever since I've heard about it, but all these people from different points in time being abducted by aliens and then all returning at the same point. And it doesn't really feel like a Aquaman plot.
Yeah, it was weird. It was like they were saying that these people disappeared and were being converted into Atlantean citizens or something because the guy who disappeared during the 30s or whatever recognizes or knows that it's Arthur Curry, whatever you want to call him.
Yeah.
And so like does he know about that culture? He obviously has the necklace, so that's weird. And I get like you're gonna have to introduce plot lines for future episodes, but maybe not the pilot episode have such a distracting plot line to what's going on with Arthur Curry.
Like to be fair, it's like watching that dude wash up on shore, recognize Arthur as Orn, and then just sort of die. That feels more like an episode 2 plot line, not an episode 1 plot line.
Yeah, for sure. I would have at least liked to see the trident. Like again, like these are all little like nods that they could have done that would have gotten any. Because Aquaman is not the most popular of the Justice League. He's often a punchline. Although, I mean, when he's in the water, he is almost as strong, if not stronger, than Superman. So.
He's not really a slouch outside of water either. I mean, that's a very common misconception.
Unless he's super dry.
Yeah, and man, let's talk about the getting wet to power up scene.
Oh, the spinach scene.
Get the water. It's a flask in my back pocket. Now smash it.
And I liked how when he ripped off the rope, it was like gunshot noises. Like he ripped the rope so hard that it was like a gunshot.
Also, speaking of sound cues, let's talk about that title sequence real quick. And man, could they use a more stock sound effect for that title sequence? You could tell that was definitely not what it was going to be. They just kind of sort of threw that together. It's like, well, yeah, we'll replace this later when this goes to series. But man,
we'll get a Lifehouse
something.
song and do the introduction.
I mean, we should. That was weird.
We should talk a little bit more about. I mean, we keep making these Smallville references and allusions, but there's a reason for that. It's the exact two showrunners from Smallville.
Yeah.
So you would think, with a little bit of practice, they would have been able to have a better hold on this. I don't understand.
Because one of the things is that they were not expecting the appearance of Aquaman to go over so well in his episode of Smallville. So they're like, they wanted to make a new superhero show. And then pretty much the concept of making an Aquaman show just sort of dropped in their lap. And they're like, oh, I guess we got to do something about that. And honestly, they really did not stick the landing at all. Like, it was fine, not great. Would I have liked to see more? Probably. But am I glad that he got to go on and be Green Arrow in Smallville? Oh, yes, I do. I think he plays Green Arrow a lot better than he plays Arthur Curry.
Green Arrow is just more interesting. He's CW's Batman, um, the current iteration of him as well. So seeing him be able to do that playboy billionaire slash a vigilante at night was a lot of fun, and like that is a good thing to come out of this show. Failing is getting a really good character for Smallville.
Yes, that is true, and honestly, who even knows if we would have even had all that Justice League coming together without him in that season.
Oh yeah, I Smallville did a lot of things wrong, but it did a lot of things right too, and the way it handled a lot of the crossovers were really cool. My biggest problems are with the final seasons. I'm not going to get into that. But
that's a discussion for another show with another person.
I only own seasons 1 through 7 on for Smallville. I do not own 8, 9, and 10. But well, we didn't really talk about the glaring bad parts of it. I think we're starting off right away. The creature design.
Yeah, the creature design was not great. It was.
No.
It feels like they had better effects in season 1 of Supernatural, and that was what, a couple of years before this?
Oh yeah.
No, I think it was a year before this, because I think there was one season of it's like I'm trying to think. I think there was one season of Supernatural on the WB, and then the rest were on CW.
Makes sense.
So I think it was a year before this, and season 1 Supernatural, way better effects than this. Smallville, way better effects than this. All they had was one monster to deal with, and they kind of just, for lack of a better term, flopped.
Yeah, and like maybe it was the way they went about the creature design, because like obviously most of their budget went on this creature. It kept transforming and doing like old early Buffy transformations where like 1 minute it was one thing and then it like dissolved into another thing. But maybe not use your first character to be like this eel-tailed woman. Like there's creatures that have finned feet. Like you could have sold it still if you just didn't make it as complicated as you tried to make it.
Honestly, if Nadia was just an evil Atlantean, I feel like this entire episode would have just ended, just been way better. You wouldn't have had to deal with all the the effects, the fake teeth in her mouth.
Yeah.
The weird fake teeth. It's just
every 10 minutes you saw her, it was like, this is not even my final form, and then like she would do something else weird, and I don't know, it seemed to be a little bit of a waste. Were there any other big?
I don't think that the military subplot was needed at all. That's like, once again, that's definitely something that maybe bring up in like an episode 2 or episode 3. This is not something you need in the pilot. It's just adding on to what should be the origin story of Arthur Curry. We don't need the story of this pilot that Arthur saves, and then also at the same time there's a secret military organization within the Navy that is monitoring Atlanteans that come through this portal, and then they have the top men room filled with pictures of people that have disappeared over the years. And we just did not need that in a pilot.
Especially 2006. They should have a digital archive. Like, there's no reason for all those boxes.
I mean, in 2006, it's very early digital cameras. It's very possible they just didn't have the money to digitize all those old photos. So I will give them a pass on that. If this was like 4 years later, there's no excuse. But 2006, you kind of get a pass.
Yeah, and it was kind of interesting. We didn't see a single cell phone throughout the pilot?
No. The military dude had a cell phone. It was a flip phone. He took that call. He took that call walking away from Arthur Curry. Man, like I said, he just sort of gives up on that chase. It's like he's like, "Where are you taking him? Where are you taking him?" All right, I'm just gonna stop walking.
Yeah, it would have went a lot smoother if they were not involved. So let's do what I think every person does when a TV series fails, and let's give it our own rewrite. So I'm interested, Eric. Is there anything you'd keep? What would you change?
So obviously, definitely keep Ving Rhames.
Yes, for sure.
Absolutely, for sure. I probably would change the beginning a bit. Maybe not have the weird sort of narration from the maybe dead mom. We don't know. Because maybe she would have been revealed to be alive at the season finale of this supposed season. But I don't think we needed that, thing. If we just started with the plane crash, or hell, even like you said before, started off with like an escape from Atlantis, definitely would have improved it just a tad. Because it's sort of like in Iron Fist how they don't show the fight with the dragon. You're having an Aquaman pilot and you don't show Atlantis. That's just a waste.
Or any hint of the royalty, even if we got to see the mom like leaving the water but in like gowns or something that would sell royalty, I think you would have a good step in the right direction. You'd be starting off on the right fin, if you will.
All right, so thing number 2 I would change, definitely actually make this Alan Ritchson. Like I said, don't hate Justin, but Alan Ritchson definitely deserved to have this be his pilot. At that point, just because he had such a great episode, like it wasn't intended to be a backdoor pilot at all in the show. So it's like, hey, we have an Aquaman. The audience seems to love this Aquaman. Let's not use this Aquaman. Makes no sense.
And I think it would have been stronger being a spin-off as opposed to a brand new series that had nothing to do with the old Aquaman. Because you're going to get the fans of Smallville watching the show. So to not do that, it seemed like a disservice.
And to think about it, it's sort of the same thing that The Flash wound up doing by having Barry Allen, just regular old Barry Allen being in 2 episodes in season 2 of Arrow. And then having him go off. They were originally going to have that be a backdoor pilot and just have an episode of Arrow that would be the pilot for The Flash. But since they loved Grant Gustin in that role so much, they just gave him a regular pilot. And that took off and, exponentially grew the Arrowverse. Could you imagine what would have happened if season 6 of Smallville, they actually had an Alan Ritchson run Aquaman show alongside the Tom Welling Smallville.
Oh yeah, it would be unbelievable.
And then they converged for a Justice League plot. That would have been so much better. But at the same time, would we have wound up with the Arrowverse, and would Smallville still be going?
Yeah, because we don't know what other doors for what other we could have gotten a Legion of Superheroes from the Future crossover. We could have gotten like a bunch of shows that are popular now, the same style. I also think it's pretty interesting that... Oh no, I lost my thought. Never mind. Okay. So anything else?
I got one more change.
Okay.
Nadia should have been Mira.
Yes, that was my change. Because for those of you who do not know, Mira, Aquaman's future wife, started out trying to kill him, and how perfect way to introduce a character who would be continuously on the show, and then everyone loves the redeemed villain. It would have gone leaps and bounds, and the name recognition alone would have got people into it.
And like I said, there's really no other Aquaman characters in this show, in this pilot, other than Aquaman. And because they didn't go with the half human story, his father's not really his father, so.
Right. I mean, that was one thing I was going to complain about, but because like, oh, none of this really lines up with the comic stories, but I can't really argue that because I'm a fan of Gotham and how it kind of subverts the original story. So I'm not gonna be too harsh on it because I mean, if it does it well, I like taking new directions with stories because I can accept them as alternate universes. But this one just seemed like a doomed universe from the start almost.
Yeah. Which is unfortunate because it's like I feel that it's like, yeah, sure, a couple of the performances were off. Definitely in the business partner, friend, love interest character. Definitely could have used a lot of work.
Yeah, and yeah, man, there's just so many characters they introduced that they did not. Okay, the cop didn't show back up with the frosted tips. Like, it just seemed like they took on a lot of characters and locations and plots for a pilot episode were not needed. I think I'm just repeating myself at this point.
The one thing I will say is that I definitely think this pilot definitely wound up influencing the pilot for Arrow, especially with the flashback aspects of that pilot.
Interesting.
Just because those definitely the shots of the boat and the flashback on the airplane. I talked about it in the actual watch along part, but it definitely gave me not just as a joke because haha he's Oliver Queen, but it definitely is very well technically the pilot of Arrow was very reminiscent of this, but it definitely reminded me a lot of those scenes. Definitely with with Sarah being brushed under the water, sort of kind of like how his mom got.
Yeah.
That, and it's like a lot of it definitely feels very similar to how it eventually got used in Arrow, and I definitely feel like this, between that and the actor becoming Oliver on Smallville, this pilot definitely made its influence despite not becoming a full show, which is good. We don't usually see that.
Yeah. Usually if a pilot doesn't get aired, there's a lot of things wrong with it, and no one's going to learn from it. But it was smart of the CW team to take bits and pieces and apply them to their future shows, especially because they recognize the popularity of it. Did we miss anything? Are we forgetting anything? Did we discuss?
Let's see. What else? What else could we? We didn't talk about that bar at all. That bar is like I said, it's a very TV set bar.
Yeah, you brought up a TBS bar in the watch along. It does very much look like the set of like Burn Notice or something like that. But it's Florida. I think like Dexter and like it wasn't Miami. That's where Dexter takes place. So there was a lot of like more like heritage in those scenes, but you definitely get some of like the same like floral boutiques and like you can see the same colors.
But yeah, I definitely think this is a successful pilot to our pilot watching show.
And we got to see a pilot actually go down in the first episode, so that was something special.
Yeah, that was we definitely made the right choice in the first episode to watch here.
So we hope you enjoyed this episode of the Downed Pilot Podcast. Thank you so much for listening, wherever you're listening. Be sure to like or thumbs up or whatever shows a positive reflection of how you feel about us. Even if you didn't like it, you can thumbs it down. You still gave us a view, and that's great. Eric, where can they find you if they want to talk anything else?
You can usually find me on Twitter. I'm at BunkBunker. That's one word, no underscores or anything. Usually just yell at me there if you disagree with anything that I say. Think I made a dumb joke, just call me out on it. I don't care.
All right. Well, Eric's Twitter feed's about to get very busy. If you want to talk to me, you can talk to me at Odd Shape Panel, and you can check out all the other great content here on Odd Shape Channel. Thank you so much for listening. If you have any ideas for future episodes, please let us know on Twitter. The curriculum is that it had to have a pilot episode and never air, or maybe air once and was canceled. We'll see how it goes. But that's it for the Downed Pilot Podcast. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you next time.
Bye.
Bye.